Good morning. My name is Enna, and I'm not very much on social media. I'm not an advocate or a user of social media. You won't find me twittering, whatever it is that you do, or Instagramming or stuff like that. But with the outbreak of coronavirus and this widespread pandemic, it has brought me to being a frequent visitor of social media, amongst other things, the news. And what is alarming to me is the lack of social responsibility. And I don't mean that just by the politicians or one sector. I'm looking at overall, the broad range. Number one, you have the influencers, people who are in a position of power or influence. Elon Musk comes to mind with the comment that he made that the coronavirus panic is dumb. Now, Mr. Musk, like anyone else, is entitled to their view, but there are some views that you need to put some red tape around, you know. It's very irresponsible, in my view, for someone of that stature to get on public media and post a comment like that, unless there's some underlying personal objectives. That's a whole other story. The other one that came to my attention was Ellen DeGeneres, making light of the hand washing and turning it into sexy, sexual, healing hand washing. Ha ha ha. Great guffaw. Again, in my view, that was a moment to influence people to really take it seriously, not to make light of it. So that was a little bit disappointing for me. And who was the third? Our good old congressman, Matt Gaetz, wearing a mask. Well, I think we all know who had the last laugh with that, because a few days later, Mr. Gaetz was himself quarantined and perhaps wearing a mask. So, but the point I'm making here is that we all have a responsibility to ourselves, to a community, to our families, and especially those in higher positions who influence people who are on our news and on that television all the time. We have a responsibility to be a little more discretionary about what we say in the public. And speaking about what we say in the public, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of articles that I've read. I've heard this also from people repeating this to each other, where they're saying, oh, my doctor says I don't need to wear masks. Masks are only for healthcare workers and for those who are infected. Here's the interesting thing. For the entire time that this virus has been just ravaging cities, what is clear to us is that we don't know who's contaminated and who's not. I'll say that one more time. We don't know who is contaminated and who's not. Also, what they're finding is that people can be asymptomatic. You're carrying it, but there are no symptoms, or they're so mild that you don't notice. But during the time that you're carrying it, you can communicate it. You are highly contagious. So let's go back to that statement before about not wearing a mask, and masks are only for people in the healthcare profession and who are contagious. Are you contagious? Am I contagious? Who knows? So the problem here is, do we know who should and shouldn't wear a mask? Well, I'll let you answer that yourself. I will post a video link here this is an interview that Michael Osterholm had with Joe Rogan. The other person I want to mention is Dr. Bruce Aylward. Again, I'll post a link here. This is an interview, a recent interview with Dr. Aylward, and I want you to listen very carefully to what they're both saying. And these are experts. Dr. Aylward, by the way, is the Assistant Director General at WHO, where he's been since 1992, and works in tandem with the United Nations on humanitarian emergencies. And he specializes in leading teams on readiness, research, and preparedness in communicable diseases and humanitarian emergencies. Again, that video is here, that link is here to that video, that interview. You be the judge of it yourself. And speaking of people with influence, this one is very applicable here. Pearl Jam cancelled their concert, what was it, March 9th? And in their announcement on their website, they wrote a special message to President Trump. Well, in the direction of President Trump. And that message said, "It certainly hasn't helped that there's been no clear messages from our government regarding people's safety and our ability to go to work. Having no examples of our National Health Department's ability to get ahead of this, we have no reason to believe that it will be under control in the coming weeks ahead." All right, let's talk about this. It is not the president or the politician's job to keep you healthy. It is not their job to make you aware of what's happening. It is not their job to educate you about communicable diseases. The coronavirus is not the first epidemic we've dealt with. We've had many before. In other words, what I'm saying is that we've had time to prepare. Now, if you choose to fritter your time away and tweet and check your Facebook and do all these other things before, instead of educating yourself about what's happening around you, that is a choice that you make, not the politicians. Now, I know it's been in vogue to take jabs at President Trump every opportunity we get. But the reality is, it's really not his job to take care of you personally. Moreover, here are a couple things that are definitely not going to help you in this situation. Panicking, denial, and blaming. Let's throw anger in there while we're at it. But if you choose to be angry, and remember, it's all a choice. So let's talk about your responsibility to you, to your community, to your family. The first thing is wash your hands. Yeah, you've heard it a million times. And as the World Health Organization and Ellen so wonderfully demonstrated for us, wash them thoroughly with soap. I know, I didn't think I have to say that either, but wash it with soap. The second thing, despite what you've been reading about not wearing a mask, again, this comes back to social responsibility. Let me put it differently. I'm wearing a mask. I have no problems wearing a mask. Why? Because I don't know if I have something, and I definitely don't want to get it. So I wear it to keep my own germs to myself, and I'll wear it so you can keep your germs to yourself. Third thing I want to remind you is, as you'll see when you watch that video, that interview with Dr. Aylward, 1 meter distance, and don't look directly at each other, because when you speak, and if you don't believe this, test it. Have someone stand with the light behind, the sunlight behind, and then let them speak. And you'll see millions, gazillions of tiny sprays and droplets. Some of us are juicier than others. Just, spewing out. It's like a rainfall. So there's no doubt that you're sharing. in many more ways than one when you're speaking. So contain that. Wear a mask. And also, as he suggests, don't look directly, slight angle, so you're spraying in a different direction. That's presuming you're not wearing a mask. So number 4 is facing away. Number 3 is 1 meter distance. Number 4 is facing away. Now the 5th one, my personal favorite, perhaps because I created it. So the word of the day is stifa. It's right there. Hashtag stifa. Share it. What does it mean, you're probably asking? Work with me. Stay the fudge at home. That's the best method of not getting the virus, not sharing the virus. Stay at home. Containment. When you listen to the interviews, and in fact if you look at other interviews, there's one word you'll hear quite a lot of. Containment. Stay the F at home. Stifa. Pass it on. Until next time, be safe.